together my horror sounds cosplay. Here I'm starting off with my bald cap already stretched over my ears. Underneath my hair is held up by hair clips to try to keep the cap as smooth as possible to my head. We're now going to take spirit gum and slip that in between the seams of the face and the cap to keep the cap in place. After that, we're going to close up that seam line using thin layers of liquid latex. Before you use liquid latex, make sure you do an allergy test on it on the inside of your arm and wait 30 minutes to make sure that you're okay to go. Before this shoot, I created some prosthetics out of glycerin, gelatin, water, and honey. I didn't have a live cast of my face, so I approximated how much my jaw and head curved and created a non-dry clay base that approximated that curve. I then sculpted the top jaw and the broken skull bits into 2 different molds. For the teeth, I used plastic nails as placeholders, and for the hairline cracks, I used a pin needle. Once the sculpts are done, I built a clay wall around the molds. These molds later actually cracked, so I had to rebuild the walls higher in the second round. I mixed together Plaster of Paris with water in a plastic cup. It'd be best preferred if you had someone to help gradually pour the mixture, and then poured that mixture into my mold. After about an hour, I removed the clay from the mold and then recycled the clay. I then took oil and lightly covered the mold to prevent the gelatin from sticking. Butter spray, olive oil, or coconut oil works just fine for this situation. For the mixture, I added 3 parts gelatin, 2 parts glycerin, 1 part honey, and 1 part water. The glycerin and honey gives the gelatin its form and the water gives it its elasticity. If you can find it, Sorbitol is actually better to use in place of the water and honey, which keeps the mold from shriveling over time. Mix the elements, preferably in a plastic bin, until it becomes a paste, and then you'll microwave that paste in increments of 10 seconds until the paste becomes a liquid. Don't overcook it or else the mix will start turning white and bubbling over. It's best to make the prosthetics on the day of your makeup shoot because the prosthetics begin to shrivel over time. The more water that you add, the quicker that shrinks. After pouring the elements, wait a good 15 minutes until it dries. Powder the prosthetic with any foundation that you have and peel it out of the mold, and then you're ready. With these prosthetics, I'm going to take spirit gum and apply a thin layer to the back side and a thin layer to the area that I'm applying. Give it a few seconds to dry and tap the glue a few times to create a tacky surface. Once the surface is tacky, apply the prosthetics to the required areas. Don't forget to cover the seams. Seal the seams using liquid latex. If your prosthetic keeps popping out, you can stick latex underneath and hold the prosthetic in place until the latex dries. To create the illusion of the skull's nose, I'm wetting my fingers and taking a bit of nose and scar wax, rolling it slightly to make a little snake, and then molding the top border of Sans' nose to the bridge of my nose. I then seal this also with liquid latex to keep it from falling off when I start making expressions. Now that everything is in place, take some cream black eyeliner and mark out the general borders of the skull. Take that same eyeliner and give yourself some panda eyes to add a safety area around your eyelids for when you start applying the black and face paint. With that set, take some white face paint. Here I'm using the brand Ruby Red. Wet your brush and begin applying the face paint in the areas of the skull. For the back of the skull, it's best to have a friend help apply it. Unfortunately, I'm doing this makeup solo, so I'm just going to blindly try to fill in those back spaces myself. After that, it's time to fill in the empty areas in black face paint. As your brush begins to lose the paint, the black will start smearing with the wet white face paint. You can use this to your advantage and create bold shadows when it begins to smear gray. I used this gray mix in places of depth, such as the crevices of the teeth beneath the cheekbones, in the divots of the skull, around the eyes, and around the forehead. This step can take as long as you wish, depending on how many details you're going for. I was cut for time, so I'm doing this rather quickly. After your paint has begun to dry, you can take matte black or gray eyeshadow, here I'm using black, and a dry platypus brush and begin to add shadow gradients around the face. Here I'm adding it around the jaw, the bridge of the nose, and around the eyes. This step isn't necessary, but like most of my black and white makeups, I like to add a bit of color. So for this, I'm taking Ben Nye Red CL14 Blood Red Cream color in a small brush and adding the cream around the cracks in Sand's skull and around his eye. This cream is essentially grease paint, so keep in mind that this paint is not really dry and thus it smears very easily. I decided to take this a little further and give the look of splattered dripping blood coming down from the cracks of his head. Now that everything is done, you can put on your skeleton gloves, grab your butcher knife, and you're ready to chop some heads. Thank you for sticking with me through this tutorial. Be sure to share, comment, and subscribe for more cosplay, webcomic, and Undertale content.